All right, everyone. Doug Bender from DyeStat.com, joined by the national championship coach from Herriman. This is Doug Souls, and we are in Woodbridge week. So this Friday, Saturday, the big Woodbridge meet down in Irvine, 15,000 athletes over the course of 2 days, 52 races. A lot of eyeballs are going to be glued to those sweepstakes races at the end of the night, though, on Saturday. And Coach Souls knows a lot about that. He's won it many times at Great Oak. He won last year with Herriman. That Herriman group obviously went on to win NXN, and this year's team might even be a little bit better than last year's team, which is a scary thought for everyone else trying to win a national championship this year. Doug, thank you so much for giving me a little bit of your time, because I know how busy you are.
Oh, absolutely.
Let's just jump in and talk for a moment about Woodbridge. Such an interesting meet. It's so big. It gives so many kids a chance to get a result. And, you know, I know maybe not a lot of people pay attention to those first 40, 50 races, except for their parents and their coaches and their grandpas and grandmas and everything. But everyone gets to run a fast 3-mile time there in Southern California. What is that? You know, I know you've been taking teams there for more than a decade, maybe closer to 2 decades. What is that? What has Woodbridge meant to you, not only at Great Oak, but then, you know, wanting to take teams back there even now that you're in Utah?
Yeah, I mean, when I was at Great Oak, the important thing about Woodbridge for me was it was an early season meet. It was usually number 1 or number 2 on our schedule. So we had an opportunity to kind of see what we actually had. You know, you get kids out and you start training them up. You get these freshmen and you want to see what they can do. And so we would put them into the Woodbridge grinder. And then when they would come out, we would be like, okay, this kid's as good as I think they are, or this kid's better. And so I had quite a few instances with kids where it was like, I think this kid's pretty good. And then we put them in big races at Woodbridge and they would come out and I go, okay, that kid's great. Like, that's going to be a really, really tremendous kid for us. So I just like the fact that it kind of opened up my eyes to what my kids were capable of. And maybe if we got beat, we had some things to work on. And, you know, big championship meets create stress and they create conflict, and you've got to find ways to deal with that. And as you manage that better and better, you're able to handle the things at the end of the season. So it's a good early season test for California kids, but it's more of a late season test for us in Utah, because we're going to do that, and then Bob Furman, and then we're into postseason. So it's very different, the mindset. So for the kids here, this is their big trip that they get to pick. You know, they get to pick one national level meet. And they've picked Woodbridge the last 3 years. So our boys won in 2022. They won last year, and they're going to try to see if they can be the first boys team to go 3 in a row. So they're excited about that challenge. Yeah.
So they want to go because they want to win 3 in a row, or because they just like that's the best option?
It's really hard to beat the event of Woodbridge. You know what I mean? It is a big festival, and we don't see a lot of meets like that in a place like Utah. So when you take the kids for the first time, you know, they walk out there like, wow, this is insane, right? So I think for our kids, the event, getting to go to the beach, getting to do a lot of things that maybe Utah doesn't really provide to us, is a fun experience. And so our ultimate goal is to go down there, try to compete against some really amazing teams, and see how we stack up. And I think, you know, you get an idea of if you're as good as you think you are. In 2022, the depth fell off a little bit faster in the races than it did last year. The depth was really good last year. And so we're going to have to work. And I think that's the first time where we really have to ask ourselves as an athlete, can I do this at this level? And I think that rewires the brains of those kids to decide, okay, I'm either all in or all out. And for the most part, the kids that are all in get pretty good by the end of the season.
How many will you take, boys and girls?
So we're taking 28. We've got 20 boys and 8 girls. And the reason for the disparity is just the size of the team. We had a lot more boys than we do girls, and we just didn't have enough girls ready for this meet. We'll take a few more girls next week as girls are starting to catch up. They just didn't have the same summers that the boys did. And so as some of these decisions were made, we had a lot more kids eligible for Woodbridge than we did on the girls' side. So, but ultimately we want to take a big enough group that those kids can get some experience and come back and bring it back to the team and have us ready to go.
Mm-hmm. Um, it is an amazing event. It's nighttime. It's under the lights. There's a big crowd running around and you can hear people most of the way on that course. It's flat. It's fast. The winning boys will run in the 13 minutes, 13:40, 13:50s. That's kind of exciting for them because you don't often put a 13 on the board very often in a cross country race. Your team has been running exceptional for about a month, maybe a little more than a month already. Really 8 fantastic runners that can go under 16 minutes at altitude in Utah. Are you, and it doesn't seem like there's much of a pecking order. You have a pack mentality with those guys, don't you? Like, you want everyone to stick together and not have much of a spread 1 through 7.
I mean, I'll take a guy that can run 13:30 all day if I can find one. But no, at the end of the day, you're just trying to do the right things with kids and make them faster. And so they train together and they push each other. And a lot of the times they just kind of get used to working and racing together. And so I think the reason we have so many packs isn't because I tell them we need to pack up. It's just because we have a lot of really talented guys that don't want to lose to each other and want to make sure that they're competing at the front of that pack. So I think we've got at least 3 guys that are capable of running in the top 10. And, that's tough at a place like Woodbridge. So, you could be capable of running top 10 and finish 35th really easily. Right. So, we know we've got 3 that can do that and another couple guys that'll be probably, battling for top 20. So if we can get in there and mix it up a little bit better than we did last year, I think we just got out a little slow last year and had to play catch up. And so this year we'll definitely get out a little bit faster and make sure that we're winning by the time we hit mile 2 probably. And then we'll probably attack the lead a little bit harder than we have in years past. So
because it is such a big starting line and, you've got to funnel down and make a turn, a pretty sharp left turn. I don't know how far that is from the starting line, but are there aspects of that feel like NXN starting line in terms of you have to get out? You're not going to just, jog at the start and hope to, not get, smushed by a bunch of people in front of you.
Yeah, I mean, in races like this, positioning usually matters a lot. So we had to close down a lot of points in the last 2 years in the last mile, and I think our goal this year is to kind of simulate what we need to do at NXN and make sure that that's not necessarily the case on the boys' side. On the girls' side, obviously it's super loaded. We've got a good team, but it's going to take a lot to compete with that many nationally ranked teams. We're right on the cusp of that, and we know that we can compete with a lot of those teams. We weren't too far behind Temp View, and they're in that top 21, 22 range in the country or whatever. So we know we can compete, and that's what we're trying to do is get these guys used to it so we can get out fast enough that we're in the hunt. Woodbridge is much faster in the first mile than anything we normally run. But we've been changing some things and trying to make sure we have our brains wrapped around what we need to do in that first mile to make sure we're ready to go.
Yeah. For the last few years since you've been in Utah, you've had a chance to experience that whole phenomenon where the Colorado teams, the Utah teams, they go down to sea level and they just feel like they're just swimming in oxygen and all that. Like, how does that compare to what it used to be like when you brought teams over from Great Oak? Like, do you, as a coach, how much do you see that benefit of training high, competing low, and what that does for kids or anybody?
Well, I mean, if you could train kids to get out the right way where they're not blowing up and they're going to finish the race well. I think the last 2 years at NXN, there's only been a couple teams that have even been remotely close to us in the last mile finishing wise. We finished really well. I think we were down by about 80 points at Woodbridge last year with a mile to go and closed that gap down. So it's good practice for our teams to really think about what we're trying to do in the last mile. We know we have the ability to close, really well in that last mile. So it is something we work on. It is something that we train for specifically. We have specific workouts that kind of focus on running faster when you're more fatigued. But I think there's a confidence there, that at Great Oak, we were really fast and we were able to go out there and do a lot of those things. But that last mile, outside of maybe my 2015 team, I would say that was an area that we did struggle when we had to take on a team that came down from altitude. because they just really don't die at the same level that kids in California or sea level kids are going to do. So, you can say that and then go to the meet and have 3 or 4 kids die at the end and not go the way you want. But so far, my experience has been the kids come off and say, wow, that felt easy. That felt great. It felt short is what I hear a lot of the time. Like, I feel like I could go another 2 or 3 miles based on my training. So that's a good sign as a coach to have kids confident like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I want you over the years, I think there's been, I want to say you've evolved in some ways. And I want to explain that I come up across a couple of coaches early in the year. Justin Loftus at Crater, met him at the first meet, and your name came up. He said, "Hey, we went to Park City. We hung out with Herriman, and we got to, I got to talk to Doug Souls." Later on, I was talking with Mike McCabe at Union Catholic. Hey, I had a chance to talk to Doug Souls on the phone this summer, and it really helped me, hone in on a couple of things I wasn't quite so sure about. You've become the guy that the good coaches that want to get better, they come to you and ask for your advice. Like, is that something that you've seen happen over the last couple of years? Was that always happening? I don't think that was always happening 10 years ago, was it?
Yeah, I mean, it's happened for a long time. I think at this point, okay. It's more. I think the coaches that are asking for help are maybe a little bit higher ranked than they used to be, but ultimately what you're trying to do is you're trying to help kids. So that's why I wrote the books, was to try to help coaches to help their kids, the latest book to help kids. And so at the end of the day, we're all in this for education. We're all in this for kids. And we want to make sure that we're helping children run faster and find those avenues. And a lot of times there's coaches out there that they kind of have an idea what they need to do, but they're just missing 1 or 2 components. And what I found for me is I kind of go down the pathway with them and say, yeah, you're doing this right. You're doing this right. You're doing this right. You're missing this component here. And then we watch them plug it in, and they jump 10, 20 places in the rankings, and all of a sudden they're in the hunt. So I've had quite a few teams like that. I've worked with Deer Creek in Oklahoma and Grapevine in Texas, and some of those teams that have had some really good seasons over the last 5 years. And it's exciting for me to see those kids shine and those coaches really kind of hone in and make those final changes that take them over to the next level. But yeah, I enjoy it for sure.
You do have a couple of books. One that came out in 2022, Building Championship Cross Country Programs. Just this last month, Becoming Varsity, which I think details a lot more of the, what you just did last year at Herriman and other training advice. Do you feel like you've become more open with information than you were in the past? Was it, I mean, I know you're a very competitive guy, so it makes me wonder, like, in 10, 12, 15 years ago, were you willing to give everything that you knew to somebody that maybe you didn't know?
Yeah. I mean, to be honest with you, for probably the past 15 years, I've had people email me and say, hey, can you send me workouts? And I always say, here's our training plan for the year. I always liken it to ingredients. We can all start with the same ingredients, but our soup always tastes a little bit different, right? So for me, my job is to try to help people kind of look at all the different pieces that they need and how to assemble them and be there. So I do have coaches that text me all the time and just say, hey, what would you do for this? And it's fun to be that resource for people. And, sometimes I know the answer and sometimes I don't. But most of the time, I think I can help direct coaches in the right direction. And the thing that I found in mentoring a lot of people is most coaches have a pretty good idea of what they need to do. They're just unsure of a couple things. And if you can help guide them on those couple things and they actually listen and apply those things, then the team can make dramatic jumps. And I think it's fun because it gives me other teams to root for outside of my team. And as I've gotten older, when I was younger, I definitely, it was crush everybody. As I've gotten older, I still want to win, but I think I take a little bit more joy in watching, I'll enjoy watching Union Catholic tear it up this year. They're going to be really good. Yeah. So that's an exciting place for me to be as somebody that's a resource for other people. And, hopefully the people that interact with me get better. It seems to be the case. So I think that's the fun thing is getting, I get text messages or social media DMs from people saying, hey, I read your book and I've asked you questions and I've applied those things. And now my kids are breaking records, and I really appreciate it. And I think that's a really cool thing, as an author. You go from being a coach to being an author. And actually now, believe it or not, I just released an album on it's going out to everything for cross country music. So it's got 20 songs on there that are all cross country related. I just wrote the songs, plugged them into AI, and it came out with some pretty cool music. So hopefully people will pick that up on their Spotify or their Apple Music or Amazon or whatever it is they use. So you can hear it now on YouTube, and it should be clear to the next week or two for most of the other streaming sites as well. So it doesn't cost anything. You just, listen to it on your normal streaming service, and hopefully you'll find some songs that you like.
You wrote the lyrics for all the 20 songs.
Yeah. So, it's just kind of a hobby. It's something that takes away some of the stress and kind of fun to do. So I enjoyed writing the books. The books are awesome, and I hope that they're helpful. The coaching book is one that came out last year. This year I released the one for athletes, and so far the feedback's been great. So, if you're looking for some advice on making sure you do all the right things, that's what the books are for, is to just kind of make sure that you're doing everything you're supposed to do and kind of getting the right mindset to be a champion. And then the music's for fun for everybody. Hopefully they'll enjoy it. And, I'm sure some people will find it cheesy and other people will find it fun. But a lot of the kids like the songs that I run them by my team, and they just kind of look at me like, oh, that's fun, coach, but we're focused over here, So anyway, I use it as a hobby, but if you want to listen to it, check it out. It's on YouTube. Just type in Coach Souls.
Coach Souls. Okay. Well, I'm going to come back to that in a second.
Sure.
Let's talk for a moment about becoming Varsity. Tell me a little bit about the title of that book and how that, what does that mean for what's inside the pages? What is this book about?
Well, I think as a coach, for me, I spent a lot of time looking at, not only our current varsity, but what our future varsity is going to do. I mean, I honestly spent probably an hour today just looking at what next year's team is going to look like. So I'm always focused forward in what we're trying to accomplish. And so what I find is I get these kids that come in as freshmen, and then they build to their sophomore year, and they're getting good. And you can see them starting to lock in all the pieces that it's going to take to be a varsity kid. And so I'm always having kids around me that are slowly but surely becoming varsity kids. And so that's where the title came from. It's like just watching kids become varsity. They start off as freshmen, and they're not quite sure what this whole trip's about. And then eventually they start finding success, and they find, okay, I can do these workouts, and I can do the things the coaches are asking me. I'm gonna start sacrificing a lot of these things that I used to think were important, and now I'm dialed into this cross country thing. And you start to see that varsity athlete come out of them. And so what I wanted to do was write a book for those kids that aren't going to be able to be coached by Coach Souls or Timo Mostert or one of these coaches that tend to create pretty good athletes year in and year out. Here are some guides that you can use that'll help you if you're kind of out there as an independent, or you want to just show up to your coach's practice and really understand what you need to do to support your coach to make your team better, to be that leader. Leadership is something that you're going to have to work at. It's not natural for everybody, and so I try to make sure that they understand some of the modes we use at Herriman to be ready for these races. We're not going to go into the Woodbridge race scared to race. We're going to go in there ready to absolutely attack. So, not everybody gets trained that way. And we want to make sure that at least they have that option to buy the book and read that and maybe train their brain a little bit differently if they're not getting that from other resources. So,
yeah. Let's talk for a minute about some of the guys on your current team. You have 3 really great runners back from last year's team when the Tang twins, Jonah and Micah. What's it like coaching twins, especially ones that are that good? Like, are they similar? Do they seem super different? Do you feel like when you're talking to the two of them, you're talking to the same person? Like, they run pretty close to one another. What is that dynamic like?
I have had a lot of twins as a coach over the years. I have never had any twins that are as similar as these two are. They are extremely similar to each other. And so it's very difficult sometimes to really have an idea of which one I'm talking to. So there's little things that kind of give me hints to which one I'm talking to. But if it's the first 10 seconds, I'm not quite sure which one it is. Whichever one if I say Micah, then I'm talking to Jonah, So I think they come to the understanding that most people struggle to tell them apart. I mean, I wish one of them would have blonde hair or something, they would frost their hair, then I would know which one is which, but they're very similar in their dress. They're very similar in their speech patterns and their personality. So they're tough to kind of figure out, immediately, but they race a little bit differently. They have a little bit different styles, and so I can tell them apart probably better on the course than I can sometimes face to face in the classroom. So,
Did you have them in class as well?
I mean, I have them in first period, yeah. So they're out there running for me in the morning.
Okay,
and I see them around quite a bit. So
yeah, Tayshawn is your third guy back, Tayshawn Agomo, and sometimes your top guy. Sometimes, I mean, he's always around the front of the group. What has he meant to this little era of Herriman cross country the last couple of years?
I mean, Tayshawn's been fast since he came in. He was a solid freshman, ran 4:25 at elevation in the 1600 the first season I had him, and so we knew what big things were coming. And then we got to his sophomore year, and he had a little bit of an Achilles issue right as we got to the end of the season, and so didn't make that first NXN team. And I think when those guys went up there and took third, it opened a lot of kids' eyes that, hey, we need to be putting in work. Like, that can be us next year. And so he really buckled down, and he's a great leader for our team, and super motivational and super positive, and really focusing on what we want to accomplish a lot of the time does run through Tayshawn. So someone's going to get lucky and pick him up at the collegiate level. He's the kind of guy that's going to come in and work really well with everybody that's around him. Really well liked, obviously talented, and I tease him a lot because his dad's Kenyan, so I'm always telling him he's got to run a little bit faster. It's not everything's an 800, Tayshawn. You got to run a little bit faster in this cross country stuff. But he's come in and had a really great season, and I think one of the best things on a team like this is to have somebody as talented as Tayshawn is. Be willing to say, okay, I'm third today, and not have a problem with it. Really set the ego aside and focus on the team goals. And he's been amazing at that this year for sure.
I don't know, do you have captains on the team? Is he a captain on the team?
Yeah, we have, I think, 7 captains on each side. We usually do a lot of leadership stuff, and he's kind of that go-to for me. He's been my classroom aide over the years, and so I'll usually say, Tayshawn, come here, go get a uniform for this kid or whatever, and he's awesome at taking care of those things for me. So just a natural leader for sure.
Yeah. A couple other guys that are killing it for you right now, junior Jackson Spencer, Noah Manwaring, another junior Eli Jarvis, Bryce Runnels. You have a couple of kids on the team this year that were in the top 20 of the Utah State Finals last year that transferred in. Cooper Tripp, Jackson Spencer from Syracuse as well. So your success obviously is attracting runners who want to be, working with the best. What have additions like that meant to the group?
Well, I mean, anytime you have transfers come in, you're going to have displacements occur as well. So, it's difficult sometimes at first when you're trying to build that team camaraderie. And but we got really lucky. We got 2 really nice kids that came in, and they want to be part of something special and work hard, and it's a good place to be. So, I didn't change the transfer rule in Utah. The people above me did for other sports, and cross country teams like mine have benefited from kids having the opportunity to pick where they want to run. And so, I'm sure we'll continue to get transfers at Herriman. It's a destination, I'm sure, for a lot of people. And, over the years, I think that's been American Fork. They've gotten quite a few transfers year in and year out, because when you come into Utah, you start asking yourself, where should we go? If you want to win, and you got 1 or 2 choices that you got to pick from that are going to probably be at the top end level year in and year out. So I would say Cooper Tripp coming in has been pretty awesome because he's a great leader. He's a lot of fun. And so he came in immediately and just, kind of took charge and said, hey, let's do big things. So I've really enjoyed coaching Cooper. And then Jackson's younger. He's a junior. He's a little bit more reserved than Cooper is, but super talented. So I think what we'll find is he's probably the fastest junior in Utah, and probably one of the faster juniors in the country. But, it's going to take time to get him where I really think he's capable of being. And I think by the time we get to this track season and into the fall next year, he's going to be pretty amazing to watch for sure.
Yeah. Do you feel like the whole thing about transfers has completely changed now that in college everyone's just in the portal and I mean, they might be on second team, a third team 2 years from now, like that people have sort of like maybe they used to get kind of, I don't know, annoyed about transfers in the past, but now they've sort of like it's just who cares anymore whether you transferred or not. Has that
Well,
changed, do you think?
yeah, I think people are getting used to the fact that there's going to be movement. I mean, our boys, our 7 boys that won the title last year were all Herriman guys,
Yeah.
so we know we can do it no matter who shows up. It doesn't have to be transfers for us to be successful. But, I'm going to coach whoever shows up. I'm not out there beating the bushes trying to get kids to come to Herriman. If kids' parents want to find a way to get them there, that's up to them. And if they show up, then I'm going to coach them. And I've talked a lot with Timo about that. And that's the same thing with him. If people show up, I'm going to coach them. So, and I think that's just one of the things when you've got a program that has access to NXN at maybe a higher level than some of the other programs do, that's going to attract eyeballs, and it's going to attract attention from parents and kids. And
Sure.
so, one of the great things is I think our kids are really nice and they get along with a lot of the kids in the community. And so the kids talk more today than they used to. Like you don't even, as a coach, you don't even understand how many of these kids have group chats that they, on social media and texting that they talk with kids from other teams. And so there's a lot of behind the scenes information being exchanged that we as coaches probably never know about and never see or hear, where they're just kind of sharing those ideas of what's going on, so.
Yeah. It does seem like, and I don't know the extent of it, but Park City is becoming a destination for teams to go spend a week, meet other teams, because it seems like it's just a gathering place right now for not only pros go there, college teams go there, high school teams meet up there. What is going on in Park City that you see happening that's part of that whole social connection?
Well, I mean, if you want to train in a beautiful place in the summer, Park City's awesome, because if it's 90 down here, it's 75, 80 up there. And it's, I live about an hour away from Park City, 55 minutes or so. And we go up there for lunch. It's just a beautiful place to be. It's just lots of trails, lots of great runs. You're at 7,000 feet in a lot of areas that you're training at. And so we have like a lot of Olympic level training center type stuff going on up there for running, but also for biking, also for triathlons. So, there's a lot of people up there that are focused on training. And I think we're going to see more and more camps moving there, where you'll have not only, high school camps, but you'll have a lot of teams. Like we saw Crater and we saw Pinecrest from Florida came and did camps in Park City. And, if they're here and they want to hang out, we usually say, yeah, let's come up and run with you, or you guys come down and run with us. And so it's kind of fun to be able to have those teams and intermingle the kids and get to know each other for sure.
Yeah, that definitely, used to be like, when I was in high school, like we wouldn't talk to this team 2 miles away. Like it was just, that was them, we're us, and we're like two different tribes almost. You have been successful, super successful on both sides of the pandemic, teaching kids, coaching them. Is it different now than it was before the pandemic in terms of just things that some of these kids lost during that time, and their social abilities, and some of them are so focused on their screens or the video games. Like what sort of challenge is that for someone like you?
I find that funny, because I did find that challenging at practice today. I think there is an echo chamber that people are able to create for themselves of people and images and sounds that can either bring them up or bring them down. And I think there are definitely people that get lost in the technology. It's hard sometimes as a teacher, because it's like, you probably would know how to do that if you were listening when I was explaining it, but you were on your phone, and you feel bad for kids because they don't even realize they're doing it. Like half of them don't even realize they've been on TikTok for 20 minutes, and so they're just listening and paying attention to stuff that's kind of mindless a lot of the time. And you just shake your head. And, there are a lot of kids that have kind of found their way out of it and do really well with it. Sometimes they're good at using it for positive, but I believe this generation can get past it, but it's been a little bit rough this school year. I think there's less focus on the important things and more focus on me than what there used to be. And every generation says that the current generation is awful, and I don't think that about these guys, but
different though, a little different.
I've definitely seen a difference. There is a lot more I want it, and I want it now, and if I can't have it, then I'm going to quit. Than there used to be, for sure. I don't remember kids demanding success as fast as they expect today. And not even of me, but just of themselves. Like, if I'm not this fast by this point, then I'm not any good, and I'm going to go do something else. And it's like, that's just an unrealistic expectation. If there's one thing I've learned in distance running, is it'll probably happen if you're working hard, but it's never going to happen when you want it to.
Yeah. And across country, it is all about the willingness to work and how much we put in, unless you are genetic, like, you come from 2 Division I parents or whatever, and you just it just comes natural to you. Are you finding that it's harder to become varsity just through the sheer hard work if you are a freshman with average ability?
No, I mean, my number 1 and number 2 girls, when I got to Herriman in 2022 track season, they were basically 3-minute mile or 3-minute 800 girls. They weren't superstar athletes by any stretch of the imagination, but they bought in and they worked hard. So the kids that buy in and work hard every single day still get fast. They are, now they're running for top 10 in every race they're in. And that's, for me as a coach, super rewarding, because I know where those girls started. I know the sacrifices they made, and I've seen those successes in the races so far this season. And so that's what you're shooting for. But it's definitely hard with kids that expect to come out and it just to happen. You can put anybody you want on Herriman's team, and it's not going to happen unless they decide to buy in and do the work, right? And so honestly, most of the time, the kids that have the biggest issues are the ones that don't want to buy in 100%. They always keep something else. So, I do this, but I also mountain bike. I do this, but I also play soccer. It's the same thing everywhere, and if you buy in at 100%, that's what the books are really good at kind of breaking down for you is, how good do you want to be? If you want to be a champion, then there are sacrifices that have to be made. But if you always keep something else as a distraction, eventually the distraction will distract you at the wrong time, and you'll never kind of get to where you need to be as a runner.
Yeah. We see so many of the same programs come back to NXN year after year. It just seems like high school cross country is such a product of the quality of a coach. Whether it's a Bill Aris or Justin Leonard or, yourself or Timo, it's like, it almost seems like you could take those great coaches and just drop them, parachute them into a high school with 1,500 kids, and they will just turn out a good cross country team, unlike that's ever been seen there before. What is the key to developing more coaches that can do that?
Well, that's what I've been trying to do. I think information.
You're teaching them how, right here, the blueprint.
Yeah, I mean, the information's out there. And I think more than anything, today you don't have people that go into education and coaching and say, this is what I want to do for the next 40 years of my life. People aren't committing at the same level educationally that they used to. It's a lot to do 12-hour days every day, 6 days a week. But you're asking a lot of people to do that. And there are some people that are wired for it, and there are some people that aren't. I know there's definitely, as I get older, there's days where I'm like, why am I doing this to myself, every single day? But then we go to Woodbridge and have a great meet, and I'm like, oh, that's why I'm doing it. So even old coaches need to be reminded that there's a rhyme to our reason for what we're trying to accomplish. So ultimately, I think the biggest thing is you need young coaches that understand it takes time. I didn't win my first state championship in California until 2010. I started coaching in 2000. So it took me basically 11 seasons to be able to perform at that level as a coach, and made a lot of mistakes along the way. And I think the biggest thing is you got to give yourself time, and you've got to be willing to make mistakes and learn from them. I think as a coach that's competitive, that watches a lot of other coaches, you can point at that coach and say, they're going to make that mistake again. You can look at this coach and go, that guy's going to make the same mistake again. you have to be willing to say, okay, I am the problem and I'm making the mistake. I need to fix it so that in the future we get better. And Coach Dan Noble was instrumental for me at Great Oak High School when we were both coaching there to really sit and have those arguments at the end of the season and say, we're the issue. We're not in the tent at the end of the season getting those awards because we're not coaching at the level we need to coach at. And so you got to really look in the mirror and say, okay, maybe I'm the problem. Maybe I'm not doing the right things, and try to fix those things for sure.
I want to, before we leave, I want to go back to your album of cross country songs. Where can we find that on YouTube? Because that's what I'm going to go to do right as soon as this interview is over. Yeah,
so if you just go to YouTube Music and just type in Coach Souls or whatever, and Coach Souls album, it'll be in there. And it's got 20 songs. Again, I wrote the songs and then I'll run them through AI, and AI will do all the heavy lifting for me. So I'm not going to tell you I'm some great musician because I can't sing and I can't play.
And you didn't have Timo play guitar on any of them.
Exactly. No, I did not. But I'll tell you what I can do. I can use technology. I'm a technology teacher. So I have a good time with it. It's a lot of fun. And so I'm hopeful that people will take the songs for what they are. And that's hopefully inspiration for CrossFit.
What is the best track of the 20 songs?
I like Run to Win. That's my favorite one. There is a song on there called Becoming Varsity. But, a lot of them were inspired by my kids that I work with every day. And we had Macy Wolf ran a great race at the UI AAA. And I said, Macy, you're getting so fast, you'd be faster than your boyfriend. And she laughed. And I said, I'm going to write you that song. And so I wrote I'm Faster Than My Boyfriend for her. And that's on the album. So it's kind of just a fun thing. I had a PE teacher reach out to me and say, now I have more music to play for my kids when they're working out. So, I think it's multifaceted, but there isn't a lot of music out there that's specifically geared towards cross country. So I try to write and create something that is really cross country based. And, if you have something you're listening to get motivated for a race or for a season, I think it'll serve its purpose.
Bob Seger, Against the Wind. Like, what else is there for cross country besides that? Have you written songs for a long time, or is this your first attempt to write a bunch of songs?
No, this is really my first attempt. I've never really thought about myself in a musical way. And that is the cool thing about AI, is that I think it's opening doors for people that it's like, I could write a song, but I don't have any outlet for that song. So I'm not going to waste my time doing it. Now I can write a song in 5 minutes and turn it into something and listen to it and fine tune it and make it the way I want it to be. And some of them are funny. I mean, I'm actually working on the second album right now. So that one's going to have the Porta Potty song on it, which is a lot of fun. So, I just have fun with it and try to create something that cross country people would listen to and go, this is enjoyable.
Cross country is a new genre in music now. Who would have thought? And it was invented by Doug Souls. Thank you very much. I'll wrap it up, but I want to, again, good luck this weekend down at Woodbridge. Good luck at Bob Furman the weekend after that up in Idaho. Maybe we'll talk to you in between just to get a sense for, the trajectory of things next week. But my rankings come out on Thursday. Herriman will be number 1 in the boys' top 40, and expect a big show here in Irvine on Saturday night.
I appreciate it. And one of the kids that I didn't mention that I should have was Noah Manwaring. You did bring him up. Noah actually is one of our top returners. He ran 12th at the Running Lane Invitational last year, at the Running Lane Championships, and had a really great race in the mud. And so I think he's going to be one of those guys really to watch for us this year as well. So
he was your 8th guy last year, right?
Yeah, he ended up number 8, and this year, he's sitting in that 4 or 5 spot pretty consistently for us. But he ran a 186 speed rating at the end of the season last year, and he's only gotten faster. So by the end of this season, we should have 5 or 6 guys battling to go under one or to go over 190 in the speed ratings. And we know there's great teams out there, and we know that we have to be perfect on the day to win, but we at least know that we have the clientele to do it. So
yeah, all right. You said you emailed me about a few weeks ago. Said you might have 8 make 180 in the speed rating by the end of the year, and I wouldn't doubt it. I wouldn't doubt you, Doug. I can't wait to see what that looks like come state meet time for you, NXR Southwest. It's going to be high level stuff.
Thank you.